Well, the other issue that's been talked about recently is this mortgage fraud and the FBI opening a formal case against Letitia James.
So again, ongoing cases, and we take our ongoing investigations very seriously because we don't want to do what our predecessors did, which is talk about them ad infinitum in the public and then nothing happens. This case, I can tell you, is being handled by our professional pros who are subject matter experts reporting directly to headquarters, which reports to Dan and I. This case, along with others, because it is a case of great public importance. And unlike other leaders who previously sat in these seats, we don't prejudge any case. We don't care what party elected you to what. It doesn't matter to us. It's irrelevant. If you broke the law, we are going to find out and we are going to investigate you. And then we are going to discuss that matter with the Department of Justice.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was FBI Director, the current 9th Director of the FBI, Kash Patel, and his associate, Dan Bongino, who currently holds the title of Deputy Director of the FBI, saying unequivocally that they are definitely investigating the current sitting New York Attorney General, sweet Letitia James, that we have all come to know and love dearly. Now, you might not believe this, but sweet Letitia James has done it once again. What am I talking about? Well, in front of the group that's on your screen right now, this group is called the ABNY, located in New York City. You had Attorney General Letitia James give kind of a speech, what they call a power breakfast. Now, most of the time, according to the website of this particular group, they generally pay a fee for any of the speakers that appear before them. I'm still investigating whether or not Letitia James was paid for her appearance, but what I will tell you is she made a terrible mistake again. She needs to stop giving interviews, stop giving speeches, because, ladies and gentlemen, Letitia James once again has incriminated herself. On your screen now, of course, is sweet Letitia James. This is the same person who spent years waging a political war against President Donald Trump and his family. This is the same woman that when she originally ran for Attorney General, she ran on a platform that she was going to, quote, get Trump. And of course, she simply cannot stay out of the public limelight. Now, after this speech in front of this group in New York, she is once again trying to do damage control. At a high-profile ABNY breakfast, specifically a power breakfast, in front of New York's elite, Letitia James took to the stage to once again try to defend herself against the ever-growing investigation by Donald Trump's Department of Justice, looking in to the malfeasance committed by Letitia James. And by the way, you got it right. While she's still trying to claim the moral high ground in her war, her never-ending war against President Trump, she is under investigation herself by the DOJ. Now, in the first video I did about her making what I think are clearly incriminating statements, she basically said the following phrase, "what I did." Let's take a look at it right now.
Donald Trump, particularly in his company, was conducting its business.
So his investigation, he exaggerated. Let me emphasize that, exaggerated the value of his assets to the tune of millions and millions, and was able to secure favorable insurance and interest rates. As opposed to, and I'm sure Chris will probably get to this, they're claiming that I engaged in mortgage fraud, that I somehow decided that I was a resident of Virginia, which would be some commute every morning to the office at 28 Liberty, that somehow, I should be held to the same standard as, I should be held to the same standard as Donald Trump.
Did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? What I did. Listen one more time.
But somehow, what I did was basically similar.
Folks, what you just witnessed is one of the biggest reasons why, if you're the subject of a criminal investigation, you must not ever say anything to the police, period. It's really just that simple. You should always lawyer up, retain yourself an attorney, and refer and defer all comments to your counsel. It's really that simple. And someone like Letitia James, with her history, with the fact that she is an attorney herself, she should know better than to do what she's doing. This is the second time that I'm about to show you in which she has essentially made the same mistake twice. Let's take a look at it.
It was the first time New York Attorney General Letitia James spoke before the Association for a Better New York in 4 years, and she had a terse message for the city's movers and shakers about a probe launched by the Trump Justice Department into allegations of mortgage fraud.
This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless.
The probe centers on charges she falsified records related to her home in Brooklyn and loan documents for a Virginia property she was co-signing for a niece.
It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia, but prior to that, I had indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be.
Meanwhile, FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed that his agents are actively investigating the case and reporting directly to him and Deputy Director Dan Bongino.
Now, remember, the first time that she had what I've determined to be a serious omission, a slip that, in my opinion, is clearly an admission of wrongdoing. She's basically saying, hey, what I did. Now, in this particular video, what she is saying is, I mistakenly indicated. Let's hear it one more time.
It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia.
I mistakenly indicated. So what I did, I mistakenly indicated. This is the second time that she has publicly de facto admitted her criminal liability in this particular situation. Now ask yourself this: if President Donald Trump had done the same thing that Letitia James is claiming that she did by accident, do you think he would get a free pass, or do you think he would be hammered by the Biden administration and or Letitia James herself? Well, we both know the answer, don't we? I want to be clear right up front here. This is not a case about one mistake on one form. This is a case about a pattern of deception by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Remember, she's the one that declared her Virginia property as her primary residence, aka principal residence here in Florida, your domicile. You can only have one in the entire world, and she swore under penalty of perjury that indeed that was her principal residence, and she would make sure it's her principal residence within 30 days. Remember, she declared this Virginia property as her principal residence, even though she was serving as New York's Attorney General. You cannot do that. You cannot live out of the state of New York and maintain public office, specifically the office of Attorney General. She also misrepresented the number of units on a Brooklyn property that she owns. And of course, she did this so she would qualify for special financing. Of course, the special financing would allow her to save a ton of money on the mortgage payments. And now, of course, she's standing behind every microphone she possibly can, and she's screaming to the top of her voice that somehow this is a witch hunt. It's a vendetta. It's political retribution. What it sounds like to me, ladies and gentlemen, is a public admission of her ongoing, long-standing, multi-year, multi-decade pattern of fraud. If these documents prove anything, they prove one thing for sure. She did all of this to benefit herself. She knew what was going on. She did not care. She was trying to benefit herself, period. And of course, now she has hired a top defense attorney. This is something we've talked about on this very program. I'll tell you something else that each of us should be outraged about. She is using a combination of personal funds, but mainly taxpayer funds to pay for her high-end legal defense. Outrageous. We have heard Letitia James repeatedly claim that somehow this is a mistake and that basically this all boils down to a POA, a power of attorney. So the question is naturally, is she responsible for some type of criminal activity around this so-called power of attorney? And the answer is yes. As you see on your screen right here, a power of attorney does not shield you from criminal liability. The POA allows someone else to act on your behalf, but you're still legally responsible for any and all documents executed in your name. If false information like a fraudulent primary residence is claimed, it is submitted and you benefit from it, guess what, folks? You're on the hook regardless of whether you personally signed the form or not. Even if you say, hey, I didn't fill it out myself, it doesn't work because you authorized it. And in her case, most importantly, she gained from this fraud. And I would also add that she did nothing in the interim to correct this particular issue, to correct this criminal activity. Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, if a false mortgage declaration was submitted using this POA, power of attorney, Letitia James is still civilly and criminally liable if the statements were untrue and made for financial gain, which clearly they were. I would also argue that the inconsistent declaration strengthened the case against Letitia James. Letitia James' problem isn't just one document. It's the conflicting paperwork trail. So far, here's what we have been able to document. She signed one document stating she would make the Virginia property her quote unquote principal residence. This is the basis of the mortgage fraud allegation. Other documents, including prior disclosures and statements tied to her Brooklyn and Queens properties, also involve false or omitted information, such as misrepresenting the number of units at the 296 address, listing her father as her husband in a 1980s application. See how far this goes back? All the way back to the 1980s, and the investigation is still ongoing. She has a pattern of this type of fraud that can be proven. Ladies and gentlemen, the paper trail never goes away. The paper trail has a long memory. And it's definitely worth mentioning that she consciously omitted mortgages. She continually omitted mortgages and did not provide this information, or at least provided inaccurate information on her required ethics disclosure. This inconsistency isn't a clerical error, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pattern prosecutors often use to prove intent and to overcome any quote unquote mistake defense. Letitia James, ladies and gentlemen, is in dire straits. She's in serious trouble, and it is definitely something she so deserves. Now, some of you out there might think, hey, this seems like I gotcha. It's just a way to basically have reverse lawfare, a way to basically have retribution against Letitia James. Well, let's take a look. Let's go back and take a look down memory lane, so to speak, and let's see what Letitia James has said about these types of exact crimes.
White-collar financial fraud is not a victimless crime. When the powerful break the law and take more than their fair share, there are fewer resources available for working people, small businesses, and families. And everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank about how much money they have in order to get a mortgage to buy a home, or a loan to keep their business afloat, or to send their child to college. And if they did, our government would throw the book at them.
Well, Attorney General Letitia James, you and I definitely have found something to agree on.
White-collar financial fraud is not a victimless crime.
I totally agree, Letitia. It's not a victimless crime. And if it's proven that you've committed these crimes, you should pay the cost accordingly.
When the powerful break the law and take more than their fair share, there are fewer resources available for working people.
That's right, Letitia. When you use fraud and you absorb money in the system, so to speak, that could have been sent to someone that needed it, especially someone that deserved the money under the terms of whatever the program is, and you abuse your power, you abuse the program, you have to be held to account. I absolutely agree with you.
Small businesses and families and everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank about how much money they have in order to get a mortgage to buy a home.
And that's exactly right, Miss James. You need to be held to those exact same standards, and I pray and hope that you will. I am sure this is about to happen sooner than later. She definitely deserves whatever is coming down the pike, so to speak. This is truly, in my opinion, something that is needed to be done to send a message that this type of nonsense in our country can never be allowed to happen in our great country ever again. This lawfare is dangerous, and it could spell the end of our country. Thank God it did not. This is a very dark and sad chapter in our country's history, and I am very prayerful. I am very hopeful that what Donald Trump is doing with his other associates in the DOJ and the other departments such as the FBI will put a stop to this weaponization of our government once and for all. We need to come together as Americans and work for the common goals that we all have. It's really just that simple. Let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree with me, ladies and gentlemen? I really want to know. Please put it in the comments below. My contact information is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for returning. Thank you for viewing today's video. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Of course, I am J.R. Dukes. I am your host. We are the channel of the free-minded patriots, and we're glad you're here. If you would like to get more videos, this type of content, please take a minute, hit the thumbs up button, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for being here. I will keep you updated on everything and anything to do with sweet Letitia James of New York City. I always say, keep that mind free, never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.